Go ahead and call the December 11th regular meeting of the Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out on a rainy, snowy evening. Just a reminder, make sure that you guys have your cell phones silenced. And if you are interested in speaking during any of the public comment of any of our hearings this evening, make sure that you sign up in the back and turn that paperwork in up front, and we'll get you taken care of. So we'll go ahead and start off with roll call.
Steffensen.
Here.
Carey.
Here.
Kimball.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Latham.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Hampe.
Here.
All right. Mr. Manley, any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There's none.
Seeing none, ceremonies, appointments, announcements, and/or presentations.
None.
Commissioners, do we have any declaration of conflict this evening?
None.
Okay. Mr. Manley, you want to go over consent calendar this evening?
There's only one. It's the item A, minutes from the November 13th, 2018 meeting.
Hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes. If so, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve as presented.
I second.
Moved and seconded, roll.
Hampe.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Latham.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
Steffensen.
Yes.
Bringing us to item number 8 this evening, citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is not on the agenda. Comments on this issue or on issues that are planned for the future meeting, we ask that you would hold that for that meeting, but it is my understanding that we do have one person wishing to speak on an item not being presented this evening. Don, is it Downey? All right, sir. Do us a favor, come up, state your name and address.
My name's Don Downey, 4835 Candlewood, Post Falls, Idaho. I'd like to apologize, first of all, for the attire. Just had a knee replacement, so sweats are in order for me. General comment, just in terms of all professionals here, meetings are held on a regular basis. For some, it becomes an ordinary course of business. Others, it's just a formality. But anytime I would encourage the board, anytime you make changes to the general plan, that you take it very serious. Especially if you're looking at a special use permit. A lot of time goes into developing the general plan. We have a lot of input from community members, stakeholders alike. And so when a board of this size can undo or change the general plan with a couple of meetings, it's something I think should be taken serious with, and only in situations where there are special circumstances that would dictate that, and I think those are very few and far between. And so I would just ask that you keep that in mind as you conduct your business on a regular basis.
All right.
Thank
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Item number 9, unfinished and old business,
There's none.
which will take us into the meat of this evening. We have several public hearings planned. Again, make sure if you do wish to provide comment to sign up in the back and drop your information off up front. One thing that I do ask for the sake of everyone here is that if someone before you happens to cover everything that you have, if you could just be respectful of time, we greatly appreciate it. However, we do value what you have to say and are here to listen. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and open up the first public hearing, Villa Point North Subdivision. Mr. Manley, I'll let you read all the file numbers.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Apologize, I'm pulling up the PowerPoint now. Good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Planning Manager here at the City of Post Falls. Introducing the Villa Point North Subdivision. File number is SUBD 18-2018. The applicant is Jeff Melchert, and the owner of this property is Jeff Scott. So you're being requested as a commission to review and approve a proposed subdivision request along with any appropriate conditions that are necessary or applicable. The project location is, as you see here in this red hatched boxed area. You have Mullen Avenue running east-west, and it's just north of there. It's approximately 0.441 acres. The current land use, it's a vacant single-family residence. The site has no significant topology or vegetation on it, and both the water and sewer are provided by the City of Post Falls. They are proposing 8 high-density residential townhome lots, which I'll go into a little bit more detail here in just a couple slides, with an average lot size of about 2,400 square feet. And the density is about 18 units per acre. So this right here is a description of their subdivision plan, where you see William Street just to the east and Mullen Avenue just to the south. I'll zoom in here where you can see their lot sizes that they're proposing is 18 feet at this location and 31 feet, or approximate 31 feet at the corner of William and Mullen. I'm going to switch to the camera where we can zoom into the land use table. So as you see here in the, there it goes, in the R3 zoning districts, there's different types of structures or developments that can happen in that R3. You can go single family, duplex, other multifamily, which would be like apartments, and then townhomes. So townhomes, you see here, has a minimum lot width of 18 feet. Reason for that is a lot of townhomes are attached product where they have to meet building code and they have a common wall. You don't generally see townhomes wider than 24 feet. So they range anywhere from about 14 feet to usually about 24 feet. Sometimes bigger depending on where you're at, but that's pretty typical. Looking at the side yard, you can see that. That's why there's the 0 yard setback there. 0 side yard setback. In addition, you see a corresponding minimum lot size of 2,000 square feet up to 21 units per acre. The reason for that is when you go 18 feet and depending on the length of the project, your density may go up, but it would probably more likely be anywhere between, I would say, 14 to 21 generally, depending on how much land and how you're occupying it. So the review criteria within the municipal code for subdivisions, the first one being having definite provisions being made for water supply system and adequate in terms of quantity and the type of the subdivision being proposed. The staff report cites the ability to provide this and that the City of Post Falls is the utility provider. Does the subdivision have provisions to accommodate it for the sewer system and for sewer flows? And in the staff report it goes into further detail, but it can be served and the sewer can be provided within the City of Post Falls with adequate capacity. Also, the layout is adequate from an engineering standpoint and a planning standpoint for meeting code and providing services. Third criteria is, are the proposed streets consistent with the transportation element found within the comprehensive plan? Mullen Avenue is a minor arterial. William Street is a local residential. There's a capacity to serve this project, and vehicular access would be improved from the alley. So all the design elements of this would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Fourth criteria deals with any topographical conditions that could make this, bring any sort of complications to the proposed subdivision. And there was no soil or topographical conditions being identified that would present a hazard. Fifth criteria deals with zoning for the proposed use and whether it conforms with the municipal code and Can it meet the conditions within the R3 zoning conditions? As you see here, it is zoned R3, therefore could be facilitated as cited within the land use table just a few minutes ago. Also, the lots meet and exceed the minimum lot standards within the project and meets the density requirements for the zoning code and the zoning district. What you see here is a map of the zoning districts in the area. Commercial's just across the street to the south. Additional multifamily R3 is around, surrounded by a zoning. There are single-family residents in the area, but the underlying zoning is R3. You also have some limited commercial further to the west and some mixed R1 and R2 off to the north, with the kind of mustard-looking yellow being the R2, with the brighter yellow being the single-family zoning district. And then the last criteria deals with the community not bearing more than its fair share of burden of the cost for development. And does the development pay for its burden on the community? This is dealt with impact fees, and they're paid at the time of the issuance of building permit. So that would go to streets, parks, and other public facilities. These are the agencies that were notified of this proposed subdivision. Post Falls Police Department commented. They were neutral on the project. Once again, here's the layout, and I'd stand for any questions you have for me at this point as I conclude the staff report.
Any questions for staff?
When it's built out, will there be off-street parking garages? How is that going to be accessed?
So they would have to meet the minimum parking requirements found within code for a single-family residence.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And the code requires at least one garage, is that correct? Even for R3?
Yeah, I'll go switch back over to the land use table.
R3 townhomes.
So I'll have to move the paper around a little bit to get the
Yeah.
whole thing. But so if you see the screen moving around, that's me moving the paper, trying to read the sentence. But I want to zoom in enough so people can see it. So on the second one is all single-family dwellings, twin homes, townhomes, and duplexes in any residential district shall require a minimum of one covered car garage per dwelling. There is a caveat. Townhomes that are processed under a site plan review may be excluded from this requirement if a common parking area is provided. So what that's saying is if you had a commercial site plan review type product that you're doing a townhome, that you could do an open parking area outside of utilizing the garage. From my understanding, this developer is planning on having a garage accessed off the alley and each of them having their own garage unit. But that clarifies what is required per code.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Applicant?
Hello, I'm Jeff Melchert, and this is Jeff Scott. Questions? All right. Then I know you
We'll
went
let you
through that
jump
with,
in first.
with him. So we feel that this will upgrade the community, and it'll be more of a modern look, 2 stories. They're typically going to be 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with a courtyard in between. And so it'll greatly improve that section of Post Falls, and bring in more taxes for the city, and we just feel like that is a good spot in the community to start. I don't foresee any issues with it. I've been doing this a long time, and we thought it'd be a good place to start on Mullen, knowing of the growth in the city of Post Falls. That's what we plan to do.
Questions for applicant?
No?
Nope, no questions? All right,
Great.
all right. Thank you very much. Public comment.
We have 3 in opposition.
Okay. All right, we have none neutral, none for. Okay, so we have 3 regarding Villa Point North. We have 3 in opposition, 2 not wishing to speak, 1 wishing to speak. So we'll go ahead and start with April Becker does not wish to speak. Against due to congestion issues, parking, sidewalks, crosswalks, such as a large facility in 441. Sarah Jackson, in opposition, does not wish to speak against the multifamily. There are already questionable people in the area, and the alleys are a hot spot for traffic, worried that there will be too much congestion in the area. And the last does wish to speak and says questionable, and that is Shannon Alexander. Sharon, why don't you come up, state your name and address, and you'll have 4 minutes to share.
My name is Sharon Alexander, and I live at 2436 North Reddington Way here in Post Falls. But I'm here on behalf of my mother, who is 93 years old and lives across the street from where this 8-plex is going to be built. She has lived there for, well, she's 93, so she's lived there ever since I've been a small child. They owned the duplexes that was to the west of them for many, many years and kept them up. She is concerned about the traffic there, for one thing, on Mullen, as well as the parking. I've looked at that, and I don't understand how they can get 8 townhouses in there and put garages. I'm concerned. I'm concerned for her, but I'm also concerned for the other people on that street. That is a busy intersection there. It's also a very busy street on Mullen. I'm also concerned regarding the upkeep of these buildings. I know these gentlemen say that they're going to be new modern. Well, I look around Post Falls and I see a lot of new modern apartments, and they're not being taken care of. So I'm concerned with that, with her being there. I understand they want to bring things into Post Falls, but I'm also concerned about the density that's happening here in Post Falls. I grew up here, and some of the changes I don't like. I really don't. I think they're building way too fast. The other concern that I have is how they're actually going to build these. You can see a model here, but I can't see an actual model. Are they 2-story? Are they 3 stories? I mean, that is not that big of a lot. And how are you doing the parking? You're saying 1 garage, but I know myself, people that go into apartments, there's more than 1 or 2 people that live there. They have more than 1 or 2 cars.
Sharon, what we'll have you do is ask all the questions, and then we'll bring the applicant up for rebuttal.
Okay, so that's the other thing. The parking, the amount of people living in there, the noise, the upkeep, the traffic that's on Mullen. And also, there was something here that I didn't quite understand. It says that they vacated a portion of Williams Street by an ordinance in January 22nd, 1990. What does that mean?
So along the the west side of William Street, if you looked at the legal description, the portion of that legal is that there was a portion of that vacated in favor of the land to the west of William Street.
Okay.
What that means is that the old street right-of-way, the public part of the street, was wider than what was needed. And so the city gave it back to the adjacent property owner in 1990.
Okay, so I'm opposed against having this built.
Okay.
Thank you
All
for
right,
your
we
time.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll have the applicant come back for rebuttal.
So in the alley, so you go up Williams North to the alley, right before the GTE building. I think it's GTE, the phone company. So you'll be going down there. We have to improve that alley by paving it. It'll be 20 feet wide. and then we have rear entry garages. Each unit will have 2-car garages, and these will be maintained. We are going to keep them and own them. So I don't see an issue with that, but I forget the other question. It
And
was,
one of the things, and I know that you'd made mention in the back, but just for clarification, there was a question as far as stories, 2-story.
it will be 2-story, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom upstairs. Some may be 3-bedroom if we go just to stagger them so they don't look like a row of houses. We're going to bring them 30 inches apart, and they'll have different facades in the front. So some might have brick, some might have rock, some might have stone, some will be metal, and others will have siding. So they will look nice. We want to keep a good investment.
Okay. Well, we have the applicant up. Any questions?
Yeah, so you're gonna own these and then rent them and lease them out?
That's
Is that the
correct.
plan? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Questions for staff before we close this out? Anything else?
No?
No? Okay. Go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll open it up for comment if anybody wants to share thoughts.
I'll jump in here really quick. So it appears to meet all the subdivision criteria.
It does.
So from that standpoint, it's definitely approvable based on the conditions in the staff report. It's an interesting, it's new and different. It's not the kind of thing we've seen here in Post Falls. And we seem to suffer from a lack of variety in a lot of our architectural and housing needs. And I think that this will help add some variety to the housing. I'm looking at the setbacks in the back. It looks like there's a 20-foot setback from the alley. So that would be enough for a car park. So a car to park on the property before it gets into the garage. So it would basically act as if there's potentially 4 car parks, although an 18-foot wide garage is pretty tight for 2 cars, unless they're pretty small, but it at least has parking for guests, 2 cars and guests. So, and that's really not under the purview of the subdivision ordinance, but it is a challenge that they'll have to overcome during the site plan review. But other than that, I think it meets all the criteria.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, it's R3 high density. We don't see R3 too often in this town, and they have a right to do 18 feet wide. It's hard to do. It's hard to design a townhome 18 feet wide. It's really hard because it's more like a, can't do a double wide type rooms, so there's some challenges there, and 2-car garages and things like that. But it's allowed, and so I agree. I'm not seeing anything. I guess personally, to me, it'd make a little more sense to have 7 or 6 lots instead of 8. But the other thing I wanted to point out, these are fee simple lots. These are actually, this is a subdivision, so these are separate lots. So I guess everyone keep in mind that this could be, the owner could retain ownership of all this and rent these out or lease them. But they're not condo platted, I guess. They can be sold at any time, and they can have eight different owners, for better or worse. And I just wanted to mention that because that is a little bit different. It's really like a very small subdivision, like a cul-de-sac subdivision or something, I guess. Kind of similar, except the homes are touching. So it's really not, I guess the reason I'm saying that is it's not an apartment complex. You are going to get some ownership over the years, and in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, one owner won't own all of that. I doubt it. I just highly doubt it. So I think there's some ownership, and I think I'm not worried about issues that maybe come with apartments or something like that. The other thing too is Mullen is in pretty bad shape, and we're going to see a lot of good improvements to Mullen Avenue along that stretch, at least in terms of trees and sidewalk and swale and curb and gutter. and up William Street too. That's going to be greatly enhanced, and that'll just raise property values in that area, and hopefully people will, you know, care more and loiter less and all of that are issues. So I see that as a good thing. The 18-foot wide is a challenge, but other than that, I think it works.
Anyone else?
No, I kind of have to agree too. It meets all the criteria, so that's, you know, pretty much says it right there. But if we're going to build there and build with density, at least this is a different product than anything else around it, and kind of, you know, we'll kind of be very what's in there right now and have something different, and not an apartment complex of you know, a square. They're going to try to make it aesthetic looking, you know, look a little nicer.
Any other comment?
It is high density, but I think there's several elements that I actually like, that there are 2-car garages, be them small. People have a lot of stuff they need to put somewhere, and if a car and a lot of stuff fits in there, well, you're kind of ahead of the game. And that they are individual lots, as that they can be saleable as 8 individual units down the road, where it does allow for maybe home ownership in there that sometimes ends up being a little bit, that kept up a little nicer. And so I like those elements of it.
Sam, James, anything else to add?
Nothing that has been said already.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the reality is, with the subdivision, does it meet all the requirements? And it certainly does. It is different, and I think you bring up a very good point in the sense of sometimes we get so concerned about traffic and all of the potential issues that we don't always look at the positive side of the potentials there, as far as, you know, improvements to sidewalks and everything else. So I guess at this point we would go ahead and entertain a motion if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll do it. I would move to approve the Villa Point North subdivision case file SUBD-0018-2018, finding that it meets the requirements of the subdivision code and adopting conditions 1 through 7 as found in the staff report.
Motion, do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Hampe,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Steffensen.
Yes.
So moved. Okay. This brings us to public hearing number 2B. We'll go ahead and open the North Spencer Senior Special Use Permit.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jamie Hayes. I'm Planner 1 with the city. I am here to present the North Spencer Senior Special Use Permit, case file USC 3-2018. The applicant representation will be from Sarah Breedy from ZBA Architecture. The owner is Ross Point West LLC, and the requested action is for you to make a recommendation on approval of the special use permit authorizing 72 townhome-style multifamily units on approximately 5.2 acres in the community commercial service zone for senior housing. The CCS zone is may be used for residential uses that are in the zone that with a little bit of a higher density, such as R3, based with a special use permit. This is the project location. It is north of East 3rd and runs west of North Spencer, and you can see that East Saltese is to the north of it, and I-90. Like I said, the project size is 5.2 acres. It's 72 units. The water would be provided by Post Falls Water District, and the water reclamation also by Post Falls. Here is a project description of what the product might look like. Once again, the streets that are running to the north, west, and south of the proposed project. This is a zoning map. You can see that to the west, it is zoned R3. To the south, it's zoned R3. There is a residential mobile home park in the brown, and to the west is zoned commercial as of right now. This is a future land use map. The yellow is all residential, the red is all commercial. So 5.2 acres. It's designated commercial. The current land use is vacant commercial, and the surrounding land use is residential and commercial. The overall zoning is mixed. There's 4 review criteria that are involved with a special use permit. Number 1 is the implementation of the special use will or will not conform to the purposes of the applicable zoning district. And the purpose of the CCS zone is to support a wide array of retail and services, including manufacturing, technical, and other professional uses, as well as multifamily residential. Multifamily can serve as a buffer between higher intensity commercial and industrial uses along East Saltese and I-90, both in terms of traffic and uses, and as a buffer from the residential neighborhood that is to the south, the Pine Villa West neighborhood. This proposed multifamily development is intended to be a one-story product. Multifamily development is typically clustered in a way that helps mitigate noise, light, traffic impacts that are created from commercial and industrial uses. If the proposed 72 townhome-style multifamily development is approved, the proposed development will be required to complete a site plan review process, which ensures compliance with the city code requirements. Review criteria number 2 is whether the proposed use constitutes an allowable special use as established by this chapter for the zoning district involved, and it complies with all other applicable laws, ordinances, and regulations of the city and the state. The land use table in the Post Falls Municipal Code Title 18.20030 lists multifamily 3 or more units per structure as an allowable special use in this zone. Review criteria number 3 is whether the proposed use will or will not be compatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the public or with land uses in the vicinity. The proposed use does not have any noxious characteristics that would impact the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The domestic water. The proposed special use will be serviced through the City of Post Falls, and it has the capacity and capability to serve the proposed use. The same is for the water reclamation. It will be served by, it will be connected by the city's water reclamation facilities. Existing facilities have the capacity and capability to handle their use. As far as transportation, it's not anticipated to produce impacts that would adversely impact the adjoining transportation systems. Spencer Street is classified as a minor arterial roadway and provides signalized access to control to Saltese Way, which is a principal arterial, and 3rd Avenue is a major collector. As far as fire protection, site-specific issues related to fire protection will be handled at the time of site plan review. And there's the 4th criteria is whether the proposed use will or will not comply with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. There are many that are in your staff report. I'm just going to highlight the major ones. Overall policy number 1 is appropriate densities and land uses should be provided within walking densities of planned transportation nodes. The Post Falls City Bus B route is scheduled to run in this general area, making a stop 1/3 of a mile away to the east at Herborn Place and East 3rd Avenue, which would be a little bit over half a mile away, and a little over half a mile away to the East Saltese, excuse me. And then there's a visual of where the bus routes are going to be. Policy number 7 is to encourage a balance of land uses to help Post Falls remain a desirable, stable, and sustainable community. The permitting of a multifamily senior housing project encourages the balances of land uses to foster a desirable, stable, and sustainable community. This would also facilitate housing opportunities for all incomes, employment levels, and even a low-maintenance place to reside with on-site amenities. Residential policy number 2 is throughout the community, a range of housing types and price levels should be provided to accommodate diverse ages and incomes and provide effective, affordable housing. As of right now, Post Falls has a multifamily, about 23% of multifamily is the product that people in Post Falls choose to live in. That's a quarter of what we house people in. That's quite a substantial demand for that kind of housing. This would also provide housing for our aging community so that they can age in place in Post Falls. Residential policy number 5 is to encourage compatible infill development in all neighborhoods based on policies found in the comprehensive plan and proposed land use. The proposed project is compatible with the existing land use as there are multifamily units to the south of the project site and senior apartments scheduled to be developed to the east with a special use permit. These are all the agencies notified. We got a comment back from the Post Falls, and they remain neutral on the proposed project. And I stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions for staff? None? Okay.
Thank you.
Jamie, thank you. Go ahead and invite applicant up.
Sarah, I think you're right here. Oh, sure. I just want to get you going. Sure. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'll get started. She did a great job presenting it. I'm Sarah Breedy with ZBA Architecture. I think she covered most of the points. Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Here's a rendering of what the homes may look like, and then the site plan, which you've already seen, and an elevation and a planned view. There'll be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and as she said, there's one currently in the plan review process right next door. So this is an extension of that. Have anything else to add? Any questions?
Okay. Questions for applicant?
They're apartments then, so they'll be rentals.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you apartments or townhomes?
They're apartments, but the style and
It's townhomes,
is referred
okay.
to as a townhome.
Is it all open parking?
Yes.
And what are the on-site amenities?
We'll have a community building that includes the rental office, laundry, a gathering space with a kitchen. That sort of
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for applicant? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Opposed? Neutral? For? Okay. So no need for rebuttal. Any other questions for staff or applicant before we close this out? None? Okay, we'll go ahead and close it out. Who wants to start? Questions, thoughts? Nancy?
It's a lot of units with no garages. I think there probably is a need for senior housing, additional senior housing, and I can appreciate that. I'm just a little on the fence about it. It's a large, it's a pretty large apartment complex. And I don't really see any green space or, anything of that nature. So it's just a lot of houses and cars stuck in there. I don't know if that's that's a terrible thing. It just doesn't look very inviting to me, I guess.
James? Anybody else?
I don't know, I don't know, look at the site plan, you can't really tell if there's green spaces or not. Yeah, it is a lot of parking. When we looked at that other senior living apartment, we had that same question about covered spots versus regular parking. Hopefully it'll be maintained, especially during the winter months. You would assume it would be with seniors. I think it just will help build out that area. Spencer Street's been pretty much built out. There's a light there, hopefully some extra sidewalks, and just continuing. There's a public transportation. It's not super close. Maybe that will change in the future. But, I think it meets the criteria, though.
I do see a need, or I think we have a need for this kind of a product. I do have the same concerns, though, about all open parking, especially when it's being built as a senior facility and everything, no carport covered, nothing at all. And also, I agree that doesn't seem to be any green space at all, really. I mean, any other than maybe a little what they'll have at the front door. I mean, no open area at all within the facility or within the development. So that kind of concerns me too.
Okay. Ray?
Well, it does meet the criteria, I think, for a special use permit. I think if we look at the development that is happening in the area, this is really, even though it's zoned commercial, it's really a multifamily residential section of Post Falls. I mean, it's not, even the stuff that's painted red on the zoning map is either storage units or multifamily residential, including the senior living just to the east of it that we approved, I think, earlier this year. You know, with most apartments, amenities are those things that drive people to either live there or not. And that is one thing that is up to the developer as to whether or not they want to add amenities or not add amenities based on what they think is appropriate. And I think one thing we need to all remember is that the more amenities there are, the more costs there are, and those costs get divided amongst rent. And a lot of these, if this is senior living, then a lot of people will be in a fixed income situation. And so it's probably something to maybe, look maybe a little differently at than we would maybe on some of the other apartments that, where there might be kids and things like that, where maybe an open space or a place for little rugrats to go run around and burn off some energy. That might be more appropriate in a different age class than senior living. So, but I do think it meets the review criteria, or the review criteria for approval.
Sure. Am I next?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's a commercial zoning, and I'm always really hesitant about letting more residential in a commercial zone, just because there's not that much of it in Post Falls, and it's kind of important to keep. But at the same time, that big field, yeah, we've seen this to the east. To me, this is an exception for me. This big field, the apartments of farther east that are built, they tried some multi-use kind of commercial stuff, and it just didn't work. And commercial is tough in this area. It's a little more quasi-industrial when you get along Celtice Way. So the commercial just doesn't seem to fit or work, and so I make a good exception to that myself. I think it is a good fit because there's apartments a lot around it, and multifamily and duplexes and triplexes and 2- and 2-story apartments. So I think it actually is a great fit in that large field, and that field has been sitting there for a very, very long time with apartments around it. So, yeah.
Sam, anything else to add?
I agree. There is a demand. It will, and it meets the criteria. So I'm okay with this.
Okay. It's allowable, it fits, and there is a need for a motion at this time.
I'll do it. I move to approve, let's see here, North Spencer Senior Townhome Special Use Permit, USE 0003, 2018, adopting the findings and conclusions and conditions 1 through 6 contained in the staff report.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call.
Steffensen,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Hampe,
Yes.
Okay. Continuing on this evening, we will go ahead and open third public hearing, the Hubert Cassel Annexation, file number 0009-2018. Mr. Manley to present.
Thanks for getting those letters and numbers out of the way. But
Whatever I can do to help.
so yes, the Hubert Cassel annexation. The owner and applicants of this proposal is Deanna Hubert of Bonnie Lake, Washington, and Stephen Cassel from Post Falls, Idaho. They're here to represent themselves. I don't know if they're here or not. Okay, they are. So the requested action is for you to review and approve, or sorry, review and recommend a zoning designation for approximately 9.32 acres for annexation. The request is for single-family residential, and this request would go to City Council, of which City Council will actually make the decision on annexation, but will take your recommendation pertaining to zoning into consideration. Project location is as you see here. It's the southwest corner of Midway and McGuire. You can't quite see it on this map, but you'll see it in the next one. But Celti's Way is just to the south. This project is just located west of multifamily. So this is a multifamily project. This is a LDS church. So you have McGuire, which is a minor arterial, and a multifamily just adjacent to the east of this proposed project. Here's where you look at the surrounding zoning. The area in white here, this is a county pocket, we'll make exception. There was an approved annexation. It currently hasn't been recorded legally yet, but the Gross-Gloucester annexation has been approved by City Council for R1 at this location. It's 5 acres just to the south. To the east, we got in gray industrial zoning, so industrial uses on the east side of McGuire Road. To the northeast, that's mostly what the Montrose PUD planning project there, and so you have single-family zoning at that point with that being a development that's continuing going forward.
Hey, John,
Yes.
isn't most of that gray Montrose? There's a residential component, that's all Montrose, right?
Yeah, so what you see here, these lots, it's not ideal, but it's single-family homes with industrial zoning, of which was approved through our old PUD code, so it's single-family with an industrial zoning, where you see those smaller lots.
Okay.
Just to the west, that's industrial zoning with multifamily, east of this proposal. And then what you see here, this is a industrial zone piece with some kind of Tetris-y type lots that has been approved also, so multifamily could be located on this site through that PUD as well. So the current land use is residential in Kootenai County. Physical characteristics, there's none worth mentioning regarding topology and vegetation. Water would be provided by the East Green Acres Irrigation District, with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls. So we got criteria for that zoning element of this annexation, so I'll go through. There's about 6 of them. Well, there is 6. So the first 3 here is it consistent with the future land use map? Is it consistent with the goals and policies found within the comprehensive plan? And zoning assigned following consideration of street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, geographic and natural features, all of which is to encourage land uses to help Post Falls remain a desirable, stable, and sustainable community. So looking at the future land uses, what you see in yellow, this is all residential. So R1 is consistent with the future land use map. The staff report goes into Exhibit S4, which is a detailed comprehensive plan analysis that'll go accompany this report as it goes to City Council for their ultimate decision. But a lot of those policies speak to encouraging getting residents closer to commercial areas, getting a mixed-use walkable community, and providing some sort of infill development. Although this isn't really infill per se because it's not surrounded, it is close to Celti's Way. It does have amenities nearby. There's commerce that occurs. There's employment services that occur. You got Orgill and you got other developing industrial in that area. So it does meet some of the policies that are stated pertaining to where you would want residences in the comp plan. Looking at the road classification with McGuire being a minor arterial, that's not necessarily a lower classified roadway, so it's meant to handle quite a bit of traffic load. That would be why you more than likely had seen multifamily approved on the east side of the road in the past. Midway Avenue is a major collector. I'll look at engineering real quick if I'm correct on that. Is it a minor collector? Major collector, so that's correct. So of which, once again, would provide the infrastructure and the access to be able to facilitate some higher uses, even higher than R1 for that matter. Moving on to, I'll go back, sorry. There is no geographical natural features as stated that would create a hardship on this or a hazard. Community plans, there's no specific plan for this area. You would just be looking, is it compatible to some of their proposal to some of the existing uses in the area. So the fourth criteria is commercial and high density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher road classification. So McGuire is in that category. They're not requesting a higher intense zoning district, so they're doing R1. But so it's not necessarily in conflict with this. Limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from higher intense urban activity areas to ensure that land is available for future housing needs. So this policy point is encouraging some of your neighborhood commercial and your higher intense residential closer to where you're having some more urban activity, so that way as you get further away, you're preserving more of that rural life for Post Falls. So going back and going, Celtice Way is just about this low, not too far away, about a half mile, 3/4 mile away. That would be presumably why apartments was approved to pass on the east side, not saying that single family is not compatible also at this location. Industrial zoning is typically assigned for properties with sufficient access. This isn't a request for industrial, so it really wouldn't be applicable. Here are the agencies that were routed for this request. The Post Falls Police Department, they had no objection and remained neutral, with Kootenai County commenting, and they had no comments or concerns. So I'd stand for any questions you have for me at this point.
Questions for Mr. Manley at this time? No. None? Okay, thanks, sir. Go ahead and invite the applicant up.
Hi, I'm Stephen Cassel, 2518 West Midway Avenue. I just want to briefly go over some of the things that have already been submitted in the staff report, and I think some of this has already been covered. I think the location, as already noted, is kind of buffered on three sides, to the north, the west, and to the south by rural agricultural areas. So what we're looking for is kind of a quiet area, a quiet neighborhood type of an area. The roadways have been addressed. To McGuire south goes to Celtice, and of course then east to Post Falls and I-90, west to Pleasant View and I-90, north up to Prairie, and then east to the Highway 41 corridor. So there's many different avenues that way. In addition, I think something that has been addressed earlier too is the population and growth trends in the city. And what we're looking for is kind of a diversity of single-family homes, which include starter homes, first-time home owners, retirement, seniors, as well as mid-sized family homes. So kind of a combination of different home occupancy.
Questions for applicant?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nope, thank you very much. Public comment for, neutral, or in opposition?
One in favor.
One in favor? Thank you. In favor, not wishing to speak, but in support, Steve. Steve, help me with your last name? Circle. Just like it sounds. Okay. Questions for staff? Anything else before we close it out?
No, pretty straightforward.
Okay, go ahead and close it out. Anybody?
No, I think it's right there.
As residential goes, it's one of those things where it's coming in and it's, I don't know, I look at these places where it's at an intersection of an arterial and a collector. And I look across the street and I think that's probably, what we have across the street is probably maybe the more appropriate thing. Because it's not, and I hate to say it like this, but it's not what it is today that we're really planning for, but it's really what it's going to be in the future. Because it's all these 5-acre lots develop out there. It's going to transition from probably what should be a higher density next to the McGuire to probably lower density as you get out further east. But I honestly think that it's probably not going to be popular, but R3 would probably be more appropriate there, just because it is at an intersection of a major collector and an arterial street. And not to say that they couldn't do a single-family residential development in an R3, they certainly can. But I think that that's probably a more appropriate zoning than R1.
Anybody else? I think we had this same conversation with the piece right next to it.
Pretty sure.
It started off as R3 and ended up as R1, but yeah. Okay, if there's no more comment, I'd entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll try this. On the Hubert Cassel Annexation ANNX-0009-2018, I recommend it be forwarded to City Council for annexation into the city with R1 zoning.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded, roll call.
Hampe,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Steffensen.
Yes.
Okay, moved on to council. Got two more, everybody good? Do we need a break or are we good? We're on a roll?
Yeah, we're on a roll.
Okay, fantastic. Then we'll go ahead and open up Crown Enterprise and UPS Special Use Permit, file number USE-0004-2018. Jamie to present.
May I have a say, please?
Unless you're signed up for public comment and,
I did.
okay, perfect. Then when it comes time, you'll have 4 minutes for public comment, sir.
I am here to present the Crown Enterprises and UPS Special Permit, case file USE-4-2018. The applicant is Point Partners LLC. The applicant representative is Chris Longson. The requested action is an approval of a special use permit authorizing the use of a general freight terminal, cross-dock, warehouse storage, office space, and distribution on 2 parcels comprising approximately 23.9 acres in a community commercial service zone. The CCS zone supports many uses, including retail sales or performance of consumer services, and permits a variety of retail, professional, or service businesses, including some manufacturing/industrial, technical, or other professional uses. This zone is applied in areas primarily located near arterials and collector streets. You can see that this is the vicinity map showing the site location of the two different areas that are requesting the special use permit. Up to the north is the truck terminal, and to the south is UPS. You can see right here, let me get my mouse going, that Expo Parkway runs right in between the two. And this is the project description, and you can see the right-of-way separating the two different parcels, which would be completed upon development. This is a zoning map. You have industrial to the southwest, the red is all commercial, and then you have R1 residential up to the north. And I just want to point out one little thing, that Cisco is right here, and then Walmart is in this general area. This is a future land use map. The purple shows industrial, red is the CCS zone, and the yellow is residential. The current land use is vacant commercial. The surrounding land use is commercial, industrial, and residential. The surrounding zoning is mixed. The water provider is Post Falls Water District, and water reclamation is from Post Falls as well. There are the 4 review criteria for a special use permit. Implementation of the special use will or will not conform to the purposes of the applicable zoning district. The purpose of the CCS zone is to support a wide array of retail and service uses, including some manufacturing, technical, and other professional uses, as well as multifamily residential uses. The proposed site is within proximity to major transportation corridors. There is direct access along Beck to Point Parkway to connect to I-90 without having to travel on any roads with residential uses. The proposed development will be required to complete a site plan review process, which ensures compliance with the city code requirements. Review criteria number 2 is whether the proposed use constitutes an allowable special use as established by this chapter for the zoning district involved and complies with all other applicable laws, ordinances, and regulations of the city and state. The proposed use is an allowed special use as established by the zoning ordinance. The proposed facility is also required to meet all local, state, and federal requirements, including building and fire codes. Review criteria number 3 is whether the proposed use will or will not be compatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the public or with land uses in the vicinity. The proposed use may be compatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the public. This area has a variety of land uses in the area. The Post Falls Municipal Code addresses potential incompatibility through the application of buffering using space vegetation as a buffer yard. This is taken out of the Post Falls Municipal Code. As you can see, where residential and industrial meet is categorized under C. And under C, on the far right-hand side, it shows that the vegetation buffer would need to be 25 feet, and it would require a fence, wall, or berm. Plants are to be planted every 100 linear feet of the buffer with 6 deciduous, 6 evergreen, and 25 shrubs. As for domestic water, the proposed special use will be serviced to the City of Post Falls water system, which has the capability and capacity to provide the necessary services for the proposed use. The water reclamation site will be connected to the city's water reclamation facility. Existing facilities have the capacity and capability to handle the requested use. As far as transportation, the proposed special use is not anticipated to produce impacts that would adversely impact the adjoining transportation systems. The existing roadway network has the capacity to handle the proposed land use. Beck Road is classified as a minor arterial roadway and provides signalized access to Celtice Way, which is a principal arterial, and Interstate 90 via Point Parkway. The site will also have access to Expo Parkway, which is a major collector, and Jacqueline Road, which is local commercial. As far as fire protection, site-specific issues related to fire protection would be handled at the time of site plan review. And the 4th review criteria is whether the proposed use will or will not comply with the goals and policies found within the comprehensive plan. Here I'm outlining the major ones. In your staff report are all of them. Overall policy number 5 is neighborhood and centers should be compact, pedestrian-oriented, and mixed use when possible. Adding industrial jobs to this area will enhance the horizontal mixed-use environment. Individuals that reside in one of the Woodbridge single-family housing developments or in one of the multifamily housing products will have the opportunity to be less reliant on automobiles and could walk to places of employment or to go shopping. Policy number 6, neighborhoods and centers should be the preferred pattern of development, and those zoning districts focusing on a single use should be the exception. This area is developing into a horizontal mixed-use area where there is not a single use dominating the development pattern. Policy number 7 encourages a balance of land uses to help Post Falls remain a desirable, stable, and sustainable community. The permitting of a transit, warehouse, truck terminal, and warehouse distribution storage facility project encourages a balance of land uses. The location would also assist in placing individuals closer to where they may work or do commerce and enhance the area by adding additional industrial jobs to the community. Policy number 10, growth strategies should encourage infill development of property within the city. This development would be considered infill if approved. The mix of housing and jobs being added to this area may assist additional commercial opportunities being realized. These are the agencies notified. And the comments from Kootenai County Fire and Post Falls all remain neutral. And I stand for any questions you might have.
Questions for staff?
Would you go over the road use again?
Sure.
That section for me, please?
Yeah, you bet. Here we go. So, and I can go over this one more time, and then I'll show you the map once again.
Okay.
So Beck Road is classified as a minor arterial roadway and provides signalized access to Saltese, and Interstate 90 is right there too, via Point Parkway. And also, you also have access to Expo Parkway, which is a major collector, and Jacqueline Road, which is the local commercial. And as far as engineering is concerned, the existing roadway network has the capacity to handle the proposed land use. Now, I'm just going to go back up to the map. Excuse me for clicking so much. And so you have Saltese running this way. This is Jacqueline running west and east. And then this is Beck Road running north and south. And then obviously to the south here you have access to Interstate 90. And then you have a Cisco right here, and you can see Walmart right there.
So Expo Parkway, is it completed? Does it run through that property now, or will it be completed?
Oh, let's see. It will be completed upon development. So it's in here. I'm sorry, let me go right there. So it's not complete right now, but upon that development being implemented, if recommended for approval, then that would be part of the requirements for that development.
So, Jamie, we saw a site plan for parcel A, but I didn't see one for parcel B. Is there one?
You know, I have what was submitted to me.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Okay, Jamie, thank you.
Chris, would you like to?
Go ahead and invite the applicant up.
Chris Longston, representing the Point Partners, and happy to be here tonight. And as you know, this has been a kind of a master plan development for a much larger area where it includes where Cabela's and Walmart are, and has been in the process for a number of years. And we've been trying to get businesses to come out here, and we're happy to be able to get some energy going here. As you know, we've recently added Panda out there, and a Maverick gas station. Maverick has purchased a location as well and should be constructed soon. Recently, as far as improvements, we just are completing our involvement in the completion of the improvements on Jacqueline to connect it over to Beck Road. Expo Parkway is actually under construction right now with all the utilities and the connection for that extension over to Beck Road. And about a couple years ago, we did complete the upgrades to the what we call the Cisco lift station for the sewer, with a pressurized line that ran up to Jacqueline and then along Jacqueline to the east. So we invested a substantial amount of money into infrastructure out here to continue the future development of this parcel. As was mentioned, in the existing and future land use plans, does have an industrial classification. It fits nicely within our master plan to create a horizontal mixed-use project that creates jobs and creates activity for retail and fits in with the multifamily that we've done. We were supportive of our neighbor to the east, Watson, and his change in his designation to a single-family neighborhood, which will have adjoining property lines. We mentioned the 25-foot buffering there that we'd have between those, because we think that housing helps with the horizontal mixed use and does fit with the buffering with the industrial that we are proposing for the special use permit. And we're next to Cisco and these other businesses, and we believe that this is a good use and a job creator for the city and fits within our master plan for this area, which we own a lot of the ground. Other than that, I'm here for any questions you may have.
Questions for applicant?
I got a quick one. On the conceptual plan that we have in our packet, there isn't really a buffer shown to the east.
Right, that'll be done at the site planning stage.
At planning stage.
Yeah, and we're aware, and obviously it's stated in here that there's a requirement for that 25-foot buffer with the specific landscape requirements, and we plan to honor that.
Would you be opposed to putting a fence on a berm there? Because I see this as there's backyards of single-family residences directly abutting it.
Are you talking to the east?
To the east. To the
Yeah,
east.
where the subdivision's not there yet.
It's not there yet, but it will be, because it's approved. An approved subdivision.
It is
there.
approved. We would be willing to talk to, to Watson, who we supported their project to do that. We are willing to take the 25 feet on our side and do the berming. Is whether who will put the fence up, that would be something between us, but we will do the berm and the landscaping along there. And we're taking the burden of even though we supported his plan, we're taking the burden of the 25 feet of buffer, which takes 25 feet of our ground because we supported that. So
okay.
That's the way I'd respond to that question.
Will there be a lot of truck traffic on Jacqueline and Expo Parkway?
With both of these facilities being distribution facilities, the majority of the traffic's intended just to connect to I-90. That's why they selected these locations, because of the quick access to I-90.
Okay.
And so
There'll be minimal use of those other two?
Correct.
Okay.
There's really no reason for distribution routes to go down that way, so.
Okay, thank you.
Is this a 24-hour a day or just during business hours, daytime?
It depends on the time of year, but those would be up to those, we're the applicant in this case, but that's up to those facilities, so I can't answer that for sure, but I think it'll depend on the time of year and how busy they are. As you see, UPS has their temporary facilities over across the street right now, where they're super busy right now because of Christmas, and that'll ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions for applicant?
There's going to be a repair facility there too for the trucks?
They just have that listed in their use in case they have trucks that they have some issues with. It's not a big, it's not a repair
minimal
shop, it's just minimal repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Those in favor?
None.
Those neutral? Okay, we have one individual neutral that does wish to speak again. You have 4 minutes if you come up and state your name and address. Don Downey. Sorry we couldn't bring the mic to you.
That's okay. It's good exercise. My name's Don Downey, reside at 4835 Candlewood, Post Falls, Idaho. Since completing the form, my position's changed somewhat from neutral to opposing, so I'm not sure if you'd like me to postpone speaking at this point in time.
You're fine, sir.
Okay. I think there's a lot of issues that have not been fully addressed, both by staff and by the applicant. And I would actually sit here and question whether or not this meets the criteria set forth for the special use permit. when you look at, and I apologize, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. If you look at page 7 on the staff report, policy 7, encourage a balance of land uses post falls. This is a truck terminal. It's not like 2 or 3 terminals. It's not a mix of retail, restaurants, some merchants, and retail. This is 112 proposed docks. Somebody asked, is there going to be a lot of truck traffic? That's over a quarter mile of loading docks. Answer for yourself. There's going to be a lot of truck traffic there. There's going to be a lot of lighting. It's not a good balance for a residential neighborhood. And not just the parcel to the east, but those a little bit further to the north over in the Woodbridge division. Staff made a comment about Woodbridge residents being able to walk to work. We're going to have one person out of 1,000 or 1,100 people walking to work at UPS, while the rest are impacted by the noise traffic. Again, the comparisons, if you look at page 8 of the staff report, staff mentions that industrial development should be encouraged to locate adjacent to existing industrial uses. Staff's comment is these 2 uses will be near each other. Well, that's kind of irrelevant, because if this is not approved, they're not coming into play. That's like comparing yourself to yourself to say you're the best or you're acceptable. Cisco is actually across the street, which is 5 lanes wide, two lanes each direction with a center lane, and further south, closer to the freeway. So it's quite a bit away, almost a half mile away from the proposed project. So I think there's a little bit of I'm not going to say deception, but really leniency in terms of making those comparisons. My primary concerns are with the 112 loading docks. That's, again, over a quarter mile of loading docks. That's a lot of truck traffic. Jacqueline Lane, which is, and I don't have the map, which is just to the north, is a direct route over to Love's. UPS uses primarily their own vehicles, but they do have independent haulers, contractors, trucks who would probably be heading over to Love's or Flying J for services and our fuel. This gentleman applicant indicated he's the applicant, doesn't know if it's a 24-hour operation. You can bet with 112 terminals, it's a 24/7 operation. You're not going to have that kind of investment and have it set idle for 8 or 10, 12 hours a day. It's just not going to happen. It's probably very comparable to the Spokane Valley operation on Broadway. So my concerns are the truck traffic on Jacqueline Lane, and not my concerns, but I don't think they're compatible with the residential neighborhood and residential use. The noise, 24 hours a day. If you live in that neighborhood, are you going to be able to have your windows open in the evening to enjoy the breeze, or are you going to listen to trucks? The lighting, you're going to have a lot of light pollution from an area that big lit up. And if you look at the conceptual drawing, there's, I think, some serious concerns with that. They have a proposed entrance coming onto Beck Road, which is about 30 feet, 40 feet from the proposed Expo Parkway. I think it's a safety hazard.
10 seconds, sir.
Okay. We'll address that a little bit later. I think the proposed entrance for truck traffic needs to be on Expo Parkway if this is approved, not on Beck Road. And I would encourage the board to not make a decision this evening, but to investigate this further. If you feel inclined that you are pressured that you have to make a decision today, I would encourage you to have the recommendations of no traffic on Jacqueline Lane and the entrance changed to Expo Parkway, along with time restrictions for use of the property to minimize the disruption to the residential neighborhood.
Okay. Mr. Downey, thank you, sir. Also marked as in opposition and neutral, both wishing to speak, Sarah Mitchell. Again, Sarah, state your name, address, and you have 4 minutes.
My name's Sarah Mitchell. I live at 414 North Almondwood in Post Falls, Idaho, 83854. And I'm probably more opposed at this point also. My concerns are that the residential area basically backs up right to that truck terminal in Woodbridge. Trucks have backup alarms that are loud, the clanking when the trucks hook up, if you have doubles, triples. I mean, UPS is known for doubles and triples, and the random hours of operation really concern me. I have a small child, like backup alarms all night long, clanking of trucks, that just isn't gonna work. I'm concerned about the truck traffic on Jacqueline also. The semi trucks that are because my house backs up to Jacqueline and the Woodbridge. The semi trucks that are already going through are really loud, and like I don't have the comfort to have my windows open when I'm in my bedroom anymore, because and obviously I'm doing landscaping stuff in my yard to eventually get to that point, but I don't have that yet. And so when the trucks drive by, it's just really uncomfortable. And I feel like we have a really inconsistent development pattern happening out there with this UPS. Like, I'm all for UPS coming to Post Falls and being a part of our area, but I don't think that where it's at right now is really, I mean, the other side of the road I would think would be a better option than backed up to a residential area or closer to the freeway. I think that we need to decide whether or not we're going to be warehouse and residential, or if we're going to be more residential and retail oriented in that area. I know for me, I would prefer more like retail and, you know, food places to go and shopping centers than having, you know, trucks all night long going and going and going. But so how will we control entrance to keep flow of trucks going towards Beck instead of going off of Jacqueline? And are there going to be noise reduction requirements? And are there going to be restrictions on their hours of operations? Is my concerns, I guess.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Applicant rebuttal?
It's always hard when there are changes being proposed, but you know, the future land use and the existing land use has always been that what this area would be is this commercial and kind of mixed horizontal use area. We have lots of retail ground that we're trying to develop that we haven't been able to get tenants to go on yet, and we think that the job creation here and this mixes of uses will help to do that. And you know, the area that was to the east that's now been zoned single family was originally, you know, zoned the same as this property, and we supported that because we want the rooftops, but not, you know, with understanding what would still be developed as we supported Watson's property. And we've invested a lot of money into the infrastructure to handle this type of traffic, and we've spent that money to build these roads, and the engineers concur that it does support this use, and that's why we've invested in this and have our, you know, we're entitled to our, you know, rights as property owners for what it's currently zoned, and ask that you would approve that.
Any questions for applicant?
Yeah, so the concept, going back to what Ray said earlier, the conceptual plan we have in here, it kind of just shows the one parcel. Can we look at this and show that, was it Expo Parkway is going to go in between this, and this is
So
just the
I don't know
concept?
how to go back to that drawing. It shows that we've already dedicated the right-of-way, and we're actually already under construction on Expo Parkway, and it's being constructed right now.
So
They've got the road mass graded and the utilities going in.
Well, I see that, but what I'm looking at is this. There's only one picture of the concept, and it has all the terminals and the building off to the
That was
side.
just the plan that Crown did, because they were far enough along that they had a concept plan for that. So the site plans still have to come back in for approval on both of those parcels. It's a little premature. We're asking for those uses to get these companies committed, then they'll come back in for those specific site plan issues.
Okay, so we can assume this is just a concept, and it's
Correct.
definitely going to change.
That's
correct. Do you have any idea exits and entrances? You know, this.
Other than the conceptual as shown, we don't. And again, that'll be addressed at site plan and can be reviewed by staff and others to deal with those certain specific issues once they get their plans laid out.
Other questions for applicant?
So you don't know if it would be a 24-hour facility?
I do
possi-
not.
Okay, and lighting or anything like that, which I think is a major concern.
Right, and again, when they come in with those site plans, those are those type of items that would be reviewed. This is more of a higher level issue, and then, you know, once they have those sites designed and they come back in, those issues can be resolved.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Do we need,
I have a quick staff question.
okay, perfect.
John, when it comes to site lighting, isn't that supposed to be all downward directed?
When it comes to site lighting, from a site plan review, we don't have a clear direction. It just says that it we're required as part of site plan review to have a site lighting plan.
It doesn't require downward direction for lighting?
No.
Okay.
Not saying that couldn't be a condition of approval if that's what you desired.
Okay.
We'll have to hold our questions. The way it's set up is you have your opportunity to speak. The applicant then has opportunity to rebuttal.
I have a staff question.
Staff question, go ahead.
Could the applicant achieve the same goal in the industrial zoning? Just, I'm wondering why does that make sense? It's industrial zone. Could the applicant accomplish the same goal in the industrial zoning?
So you're saying, you mean outside of where this is zone commercial? Or are you saying
Versus-
getting a zone change and going
Versus
to
a special use permit?
Yeah.
Yes.
getting a zone change on this prior to site development?
Well, I'm just wondering, could this project be accomplished in its current zoning, industrial?
With its current zoning being CCS, it needs a special use permit. They could go down the path of doing a zone change to industrial to get to the same means to an end, then go to site plan review.
I thought it was industrial now, I apologize.
The future land use map was identified as being industrial, so that's probably where some of that came into
I
play.
thought the same thing
Okay.
when I saw it. But
Never
yeah.
mind.
Okay.
John, the R1 there, Woodbridge, and the other beyond it, was that CCS to begin with, before it was R1? Do you remember? I don't remember.
I think it was.
I think it was CCS. to
Sorry, I
begin
can't
with.
recollect off the top of my head. If for some reason you need that for your
No, I was
decision, I can bring
Yeah,
that back.
that
If
just-
it- I'd hate to misspeak.
I'm done with staff.
Okay, is everybody else done with staff?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Latham, do you want to start?
I can just start.
I
Well,
just want to throw it out to you.
I'll jump in. Yeah, so it's kind of a unique area because you have this residential creeping in and commercial creeping in, and they're all coming together. Now we're seeing it coming together, so it's interesting. And I'm kind of negative about it because it's always seems a little funny. The whole Woodbridge and all of the residential out there just feels odd to me, and not everybody agrees with that, but it seems different. But you have Walmart and Cabela's and Panda, and you have retail uses out there, and that does fit better with residential than industrial uses. And I'm fully aware that Cisco is out there, but Cisco is a ways away from those residential uses. Having something that's pretty much almost ultimately industrial is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really it's a truck bay area in and out, and I would have a hard time approving it without a lot more detail of berming, lighting, hours of use, things like that, because there's just too many loose ends, is the way I see it. It's too close to the homes, and it's the chicken and the egg thing. Who was there first? I don't know. That's a complex thing because I think that Woodbridge, some of that zone change jostled back and forth from commercial to residential. So who kind of has a right to be where? But if it was in an industrial zone, it would make perfect sense. It's in a commercial zone. Just not sure about it.
So this is one of those weird things where It's in a commercial zone, comp plan says industrial, and it's right next to residential.
Yeah.
It's one of these
really
total bastard places in Post Falls that, and it's, how we got there is kind of irrelevant, but we are there.
Right.
And we have, in our zoning code, we have buffers, right? So we have a way to deal with industrial use next to a residential use. And in our, what we're allowed to do here, one of the findings we have to make is that whether the proposed use will or will not be compatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and with the land uses in the vicinity. And one of the things that I think is important to, like, I've designed several truck terminals, big warehouse facilities, and they, UPS is just, they run 24 hours. But the one thing I do know is that, so you have truck, tractor, noise. They typically don't have backup beepers. But what we do have is, so vegetation doesn't work to block sound.
Correct.
But that's one thing that just doesn't work. But what does work is solid things like berming, so earth, and block walls or fences or something like that that reflect the sound back. And so what I heard from a lot of the residents and the concerns in the area is noise. Noise creeping in, one thing's out, and light pollution, whether that be headlights of trucks whipping around and shining into windows, or parking lot lighting or building lighting that pollutes their backyards or even their back windows. So I think those are all mitigatable things with conditions, so we're allowed to add some conditions. I think that we should limit the entrances to either Expo Parkway or Beck Road and keep them from going on to Jacqueline. I think that the site should be fully fenced and that the fencing should be site obscuring. Now, if it's a facility like I think it's going to be, they're probably going to do that anyway. I think site lighting should be downward directed. And I think that there should be a 6-foot high berm on the east and north boundary of parcel A with a fence on top to reflect any of that noise back. So that's a 12-foot high barrier, which is about the height of that wall right there.
And Ray, that fence, that particular fence to the north and east would have to be a mass wall type fence.
A mass wall fence, yeah, so like
something in concrete
a
or
CMU.
board or block.
Yeah, blocked, yeah, just so it would reflect it. And I think if those are, I think that would be the mitigation that makes it compatible with the residential uses next to it. Now, whether that's something that UPS or whoever the ultimate user is going to want to do as, if that's compatible with what they think is acceptable, then that's really kind of up to them and the developer to deal with that. But I do think that those are the things that would make it compatible with the adjacent existing uses and existing approved subdivisions and whatnot. So, and and a 25-foot buffer on the north, because I'm not sure if that counts, if the road counts as residential. So the 25 feet on the north, 25 feet on the east with the berm and the CMU wall fence. Vicki?
I have to agree with everything that he just said. That would address a lot of the concerns. And it does, it's like the residential has moved into this zoning. This kind of zoning was here first, and we've allowed the residential to move in there, and then all of a sudden say, well, now you can't use your zoning the way you want to use it, or change it to something that you can use. So I think with the conditions to try to protect the homeowners, not, definitely no entrance or exits onto Jacqueline Road, and definitely protect with lights and something to to bounce the sound so that there is, if it does end up sometimes a 24-hour facility, it's not going to be disturbing to the residents that are around there. We have to have all these conditions on there.
And John, is there a noise ordinance in industrial and commercial zones, or is that citywide, or is that just for residential zones? I'm not familiar with that, I guess. Certain times
I'll
of the
let
day.
Warren, I know that the police does have a noise ordinance for disturbing the peace. That's what I'm aware of. As far as site plan and zoning, there's not a noise element, so I don't
There's
know
not a
if.
city
That's the
ordinance. Okay. I was wondering about that. I was wondering if some of that would get taken care of automatically.
One thing, I mean, to bring up, and this is probably more for the public out there, but a CCS zone today would allow a Home Depot outright permitted without any public hearing or anything, which would have truck bays in the back and things like that, where they have deliveries that come in at night and all those things. So I think this is an opportunity that, if they want to do something that's going to be of similar use, it's just a little different, that we get an opportunity to add some mitigation that will probably benefit the neighborhoods better than if it was just like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something like that.
Right. Good point.
James, anything to add?
No, I mean, how we got to this point, like Ray said, is irrelevant, but whatever we can do in the site planning and the development of this area to help mitigate, the noise and the light pollution, traffic, we definitely need to look at in the planning of this.
And you're wanting to apply these conditions to parcel A, whatever that user is, correct?
Correct.
Anything else?
No, I agree. I agree. I think, yeah, we could make it work if we add some conditions.
Yeah, I think that's really the only way that it works, because, I mean, the reality of it is do we know whether it's going to be 24 hours? We know if it's going to be 24 hours, and obviously the concern about the traffic, some of those pieces. So I think if we can tighten things up a little bit, that there might be a way to find that balance to make it work for everyone. It appears as if Ray has put together.
Go on and see
I
if this
have,
comes
I
out.
don't know.
Unless somebody else wants to take a stab at it.
I will. I would move to recommend approval of a special use permit for the Crown Enterprises special use permit on file number USE-0004-2018, finding that it does meet the review criteria with the following conditions applied to parcel A as shown in the staff report. And those conditions would be that there is a 25-foot wide buffer on the north and east side of parcel A. That buffer include a 6-foot high earthen berm with a 6-foot sound reflective CMU or equal block wall on top. That site lighting would be, site lighting and building lighting will be downward directed. That the site will be fully fenced with the exception of the entrances. And that the entrances will be limited to Expo Parkway or Beck Road.
Second.
Okay. It's got a motion and a second. Roll.
Steffensen,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Hampe.
Yes.
Okay, this brings us to the final public hearing this evening. We'll go ahead and open that up. 18-24-020 text amendment, file RZNE-0007-2018.
So the 1824-20 text amendment has a group of applicants that could collectively applied for this, that being Hayden Homes, Dom Construction, Benway Homes, and Hallmark Homes. They desire to remove/modify slope requirements for driveways that are found within 1824-20 General Standards subsection H, which states the following. So in essence, driveways are required to all single-family residents. Currently, they have a slope requirement maxed out at 8%, and they're to be 14 feet wide and 20 feet in depth. So initially, it could be proposed to just remove the slope requirement, still leaving the 14-foot and 20-foot depth element of the code. Well, what does this look like? Well, went out and looked at some driveways and took some pictures so we can get an idea of how this varies from house to house. Here's what a 6% driveway looks like. You can see it's relatively flat. 8% starts going upwards a little bit more. 12%. 13%. 14%. Now the residence here was actually home when I was able to take this picture, and I asked her, you know, is it all right if I take a picture? I want to see what your driveway, and it came in at 14%. And I asked her, and of course this is just one individual, and I asked her, I go, so this driveway, what kind of complications do you have getting to and fro your vehicle? And she stated that as far as access, for the most part, she doesn't have any issues. She does sometimes, when it gets icy, that she does have some complications, but she did have a car seat in the back, so she had an infant as well as a younger child that looked, you know, under 5-ish, 4-ish. So that was enlightening to know, that gave me a kind of a barometer of, you know, here's a mother with some kids, of what they felt about 14%. Looking at 16%, 16% driveway, what that is I found this interesting, is this household, they brought it up 16%, but then they transitioned to 2% to get into the residence. So here's an existing house where, you know, they did desire a flat pad, but they did a little minor shift in their driveway design to accomplish this. 18%, and you see here's a level. That's it lets me know kind of what the percentage it tells me. So that's how I'm not guessing. You know, I kind of got a cheater stick.
We assumed it was yours since it was in every picture.
Yeah. So this is 18%. That's looking fairly steep. And then this one actually is 20.5. So it's a little over 20%. So these houses are currently out there in the community, and currently the regulatory element of this is in the zoning code. I did some research in Idaho saying, okay, are we unique? What's going on with this driveway? Ironically enough, the only other city that I found it in their zoning code was Athol. Other communities in Idaho don't regulate driveways. I also found out through this experience that the International Zoning Code, it's kind of like International Building Code, has a 20% max requirement for driveways. So that leads us to an alternative would be maybe don't remove it, maybe 20% is what you have as the max. You know, I'll let the applicant speak to kind of some of the issues for them as being builders and whatnot. But one of the issues is you get a foundation in, well, your development similar to like Foxtel or Tullamore or Montrose, they mass grade their projects. So they go in and they mass grade. So they come up with some level playing field for most of their residences to meet some sort of grade. Your individuals who are selling lots, they sell lots because they're building roads at whatever, you know, meets their internal circulation plan, and then they sell these lots, of which then you got home builders buying these lots at whatever price that is. And Not saying that bears a whole lot into the decision, just kind of laying kind of what that kind of is going on. So in areas where you have these home builders buying lots, they're going and they see all these dirt piles everywhere, and you have these foundation forms, and getting the exact location of what percentage is it, 9%, 7%, 10% at times is been relayed to staff as being difficult. So if by chance you get a time of a CO, certificate of occupancy, it's a compromising position when we have this in code, and we currently in code don't have a good game plan for administrative review and approval. What complicates that is administratively, let's just say we had 16% as being the max that we would allow through administrative review. Well, what happens to the house at 17%? Do we not allow an occupancy? Is it, do you have to move the house? I mean, so it just, from a staff level, we'd like to have maybe some more time to review it and maybe propose an alternative than what may be ultimately approved as part of this proposal. But what's being proposed would mitigate some immediate issues that both the applicant and staff may be having with the current text. And as you say here, that International Zoning Code proposes 20%. So I'd stand for any concerns, questions you have as staff with this whole subject being proposed to you.
So Post Falls and Athol are the only two cities.
Well, Moscow does have a design plan standards as adopted by the city for driveways.
So theirs is in their design plan.
Yeah, and I've got a copy of that regulation that they have for driveways that does offer some pitching and changing of driveways.
Has EMS and fire commented about it, or do they have any issues with it? As far as an ambulance pulling up to the driveway or something
Didn't
like
get
that?
a whole lot of comments, but one thing I do know is some of these on the steeper slope, which staff, we're cognizant and concerned with, is, you have a vehicle with a lower profile, getting over some of these humps at these greater slopes prove to be difficult. Now, this individual hopefully has a vehicle with a higher, height for their vehicle, but definitely not going to get a low-profile vehicle up over that.
No lowriders in that garage?
So county standards, the fire is 12%, but that's a whole different animal because you're talking
That's a
about
long distance. That's a fire
mining
code
roads.
thing.
And I agree. I think that 99 point something percent of all driveways in Post Falls are going to be kind of a straight shot, or most of them. I don't foresee ever any new homes being built that are long and windy or something like that, because these are all smaller lots. So, but the 12 is a good rule. That's what kind of sticks in my head. But 20 looks steep.
So you're kind of saying that staff might like a little more time to review it?
Well,
It's possible that we make
staff
a
would like to
change
have-
and then...
Staff would like
Change
to
it to
have a
20.
decision to either remove the 8% or change it to 20.
Okay, okay.
That would allow us to deal with a better mousetrap to deal with because I think obviously we can all look at some of these and go, it's not desirable to have this situation. I think if we could figure out a way to eliminate this that's fair for all parties involved, it would be a good game plan.
And I guess on the flip side, if you just left it open and builders could build 20% driveways, I'm surprised people buy those homes.
Exactly.
Personally.
That's
So
kind of a
I
buyer
guess a
beware
way
kind of thing.
question,
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't those homes be set lower and berm up the backyard to get to the next lot or something? That seems like that would be simpler, but I understand moving a lot of dirt costs money very
Right.
quickly.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
As
especially
John
that
said,
much.
somebody that's coming in and buying one lot and gets what he gets, so.
You get what you get.
There's, I don't know, Post Falls we're so lucky. We have so much flat land.
Right.
This is, go to Tri-Cities where there's hills, or Moscow where everything is on its side. There are super steep driveways everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of just one of those, one, balancing the lot, because who knows what's on the backside or the other side. Now, in this case, it's, who knows? Who knows why? It could have just been street design, cut the street down for drainage or whatever, but I always kind of look at it as one of those things that, city staff is stuck in a hard spot because the driveway's the last thing on the house to get done.
Well,
I mean, outside.
And the other thing, on a residential plot plan, you're not required to put contour lines on it and have grading and drainage calculations like you are in commercial, so
Exactly.
these guys don't really know
They're never going to see it.
if it's what the slope is.
And, I mean, a lot of ways I look at this as really getting into the more conversation part of it versus public hearing, but it's kind of one of those things, like, well, if you don't like it, don't buy it. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but, you know, these are single-family homes. I mean, we don't have to protect everybody from themselves. If someone who buys it is okay with having a steep driveway, then, and they have a pickup or an SUV with the clearance, and by gosh, okay, good for you. Maybe they get a discount on their house because they have a steep driveway. I don't know.
Well, no, what they do when it's icy and it's slick, they could park on the street, because I've seen some, and
Yeah.
I live in a nice neighborhood, but there's a few driveways that are very steep, and they park on the street, and snowplows try and get around them, and it doesn't happen I mean, I'm not saying I see it everywhere, and it's a huge issue, but I see it, and could it be that there are people who really haven't lived a whole winter somewhere? Possibly. I don't know, because they're nice houses. They're, you know, much bigger lots than you're seeing here, and maybe they haven't lived somewhere that has that kind of a,
Maybe.
you know, but I've seen it be a problem in my neighborhood. Not, like I said, it didn't cause huge issues, but it does. You see them park. When it gets really icy and we get those slick, sleety storms, they're parked on the road. So if my opinion, there should be some, I mean, if it's 20%, 15, 20%, whatever, I think 8's low, but I
agree.
don't think it should just be, I think there should be something.
I do too. I don't think it should be open-ended. And I agree, I think 20 seems pretty steep.
Yeah, I think 20 is too steep. I can see what happened in my neighborhood. It's a relatively new neighborhood. These people buy the houses and it's just an empty lot. And then, like, when I bought my house, it was an empty lot. And then luckily my driveway's not too steep, but there's some driveways that are very steep and they can't get their low profile cars past the sidewalk, and then they block the sidewalk. So we're trying to ride bikes around the neighborhood with my kids, and that's where it is. But I understand where the city's coming from, and you get that situation where, say, 16%, but then you measure it and it's 17%. What do you do at that time? So
Right, that's
you need to put something on that.
But that's
So-
going to be regardless of where you have it. If it's 20 and then somebody puts it's 21, I mean, that's going to happen. I mean, you always have that possibility.
I would say that 20 is it is consistent with the International Zoning Code. It does capture most of the parameters. You know, anything above 21 would be very seldom. But this is a public hearing, so we still have a chance to hear from the applicant as well. So they have yet to come up.
That being said, any more questions for staff so we can let John sit down? No? Okay, thank you. We'll invite the applicant up at this time then.
Hi, I'm Rod Asbury. I work for Dom Construction, which is one of the four builders up here. Basically, what I'd like to say is it's hard to make 8%, because 8%'s just about level. I mean, if you look at it, it's probably like that handrail right there, that far side. What has happened is we've bought several lots in a subdivision. We have permits on them already, and some of these lots are 3 feet higher than the sidewalk. And a lot of these we have foundations in, and we don't want steep driveways either. I mean, we drop fronts of garages and everything else to try to, because the last thing we want is people not to buy our houses. But some of those, it's just tough to get an 8% grade on. And it seems to me that if we were going to enforce this, it should have been in the development stage when they're going around and looking at that stuff and they see these lots that are higher, that much higher than the sidewalk. So we're kind of stuck with what we have. And some of these houses, to get the 8%, we're gonna have to remove 20 to 30 dump truck loads of dirt. And what happens with the guy next door, you know, or whatever. So that's kind of where we stand on it. And if we look at that, what'd you say that was, John?
20.5%.
Yeah.
The one that doesn't have a car parked on it.
Yeah. And really, what's the one with the car parked on it? It's easier to tell.
That's 18.
18, yeah. That's not too bad, I wouldn't say. So that's all I have.
Questions?
So are you suggesting, you would like to see no standard, no minimum, or are you?
I wouldn't mind having the, what do you say, the 20%?
International is 20.
Yeah. I mean, on a lot of them, you know, we do the best we can to pick that up, you know, because like I said, we don't want steep driveways either, because we want everyone to be able to buy our house.
Right.
So let's just say really, for the sake of argument, that it is 20%, and you have a lot like that, and it's at 20.5. So that's a bit of a conundrum, right? Because no one's going to be able to measure that until the driveway's poured, and that's
I've
after the
tried.
house is
It's
built,
tough.
and it's kind of a, oh boy, situation, which is where we are today. So do you have any suggestions as to, from the builder standpoint, as to the best way moving forward to make sure that, one, that it stays less than whatever percentage it is, 20%, whatever it is, and then two, if it is above that, what kind of remedies are there? I don't put you on the spot, and I'm sorry.
No, he is. He's put
Yeah.
on the spot.
When John was showing the level driveway and then it dropped off right at the edge, I mean, it wasn't quite level, but some of that, we can pick up those steeper driveways and make them right, but right now, I don't think we have too much of a choice. We have to go with a 4-foot level spot and then drop off. So we could go a little steeper off the sidewalk and then maybe make that first part of the, you know, the 15 feet, first 15 feet from the garage, not so steep.
Okay. Any other questions for applicant? No? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would add that I do know of an incident where they, in order to meet grade of the driveway, they slope the garage at 3%, which now if you have a workbench,
Right.
your kid drops a ball, it instantly starts rolling. So
the street.
Yeah, so
For that, yeah.
so there's a cause and effect
Right.
to everything.
I was kind of related to that. I was thinking that, you know, you set your footings, it's really hard to tell where finished grade is and driveways and all of that, but you start doing your vertical concrete stem walls, and at that inspection, you usually have a pretty good idea where your top of slab is. A lot of times it's even snapped or figured out. And that's the point where maybe the building inspector could do a quick kind of a rough check, you know, give or take, to see where it is. That I would think that would help, because the remedy could be that you lower your stem walls a little bit. I know there's frost depth requirements, and or the slab, like you said, or just lower the whole slab and make one more step out into the garage.
And that's where
So,
staff has looked at, do we
I couldn't
require
solve it there.
a top of, stem wall? Do we get a survey out there and get someone to go out and certify the height of that?
Or just snap the line,
You
even
know.
something very simple, just to show it.
Yeah, snap a string line, put a smart level on it.
Just, yeah.
That might be, I hate to add an extra inspection or level of
Right,
thing
that's what
for
we don't wanna
our,
do.
our inspectors to do. But that said, I honestly think that anything over 20% is going to be pretty stinking rare. I would certainly hope so. I really hope the builders look at this and go, I'm not going to buy those lots if they're 20% too. And that's the other thing, right? Is that, home buyer doesn't have to buy it, but neither does the builder. Doesn't have to buy those lots in that condition. They have some ability to say it needs to meet this requirement. Although it doesn't look like we've been enforcing it very much. So,
For the sake of moving things along, do we have any public comment, either for, neutral, or against?
No.
Okay. Any other questions for staff, applicant, anybody else? No? So we'll go ahead and close it out.
I just want to ask you, John, so you're saying that you would like to see it, or it would be okay to make it at a 20, and then you would further look into it more, or that would be?
I would think you'd have the ability to either go with the striking it out, you can go with the 20%.
Uh-huh.
And I think you have the ability, and Warren can correct me if I'm wrong, that you could ask staff to bring back a alternative or bring it back a report within a duration of time. I mean, I'll let Warren.
So, because this is a code amendment, this is going to go to council. Your recommendation will be to council. They will do whatever they want to do after the hearing. I think my gut on this is not the last time we're going to look at this. I mean, this is a proposal to sort of get us off of a high spot where we're kind of hung up and we're having a hard time enforcing it. I'm not sure what the right answer is ultimately. I mean, on some level, is enforcing it at I don't know, we lost it there for a second.
We did, everything.
And the lights.
That was kind of weird. So,
And the wind's blowing pretty heavy out there. Right
I don't know if enforcing at the tail end of a long development process is the right step to be looking at this, but that's kind of where we're set up to do it right now, and that's probably the most difficult time to try to enforce this type of a code provision, because the remedies, if you catch a home that's got a 15% driveway and you've got an 8% requirement, is tear down the garage, which
or do a
is
step into the garage.
is a tough solution at the end of the day. So we see this as a problem that needs some different solution than what we currently have. So I think the way this is proposed is essentially to get us out of the situation we're in currently and allow staff time to research the issue and see if we can find a better mousetrap.
Okay. Vicki, any other question before we close it?
No, no, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Okay, at this time, any conversation? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion.
We had a lot of conversation.
Huh?
Could be.
You know, I guess I'm going to put the motion out there, and I'm going to preface it by saying I think it's something that bears looking at in the future, and that as a stopgap measure, because of the way the enforcement is so difficult to do, and it's such a painful thing to remedy at the end of a construction of a home where someone's trying to get into their house and trying to close a house and trying to move in, and they see the driveway and they're looking at it and they're going, I'm fine with it, but we can't, but the building department is sitting there looking at their code saying it doesn't meet our code, and there's no real remedy that seems to be apparent. Staff has told us that it's difficult to do. But I think with some brainstorming between staff and the builders, I think they can figure out something that'll work pretty well. But I think in the meantime, getting rid of the 8% requirement and then looking into it further in the next couple of years or the next year or so or whatever it is when we're doing any more code amendments, that we revisit it at that point in time with some probably a little bit better input from builders on what the best solution would be, because I don't know what that mousetrap looks like, but I think there's something better out there. And so with that said, I would move to, recommend a zone change text to City Council to remove the 8% requirement.
Been a motion put forth? Is there a second? No second?
Can I just amend it, or do you have to
We'll wait through
wait through the rest?
if the motion
Okay.
dies or how it goes, then you can make a re-motion to an alternative.
No second? I believe at that point the motion would die. So now we look for a new motion.
Oh, now I got to figure out how to say this. Great. This is going to be forwarded to the city council, right?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we forward to the city council a text amendment changing from an 8% to a maximum 20%, and then further discussion on it or review on it later down the road.
I second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call.
Hampe,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Steffensen.
Yes.
Okay, send that on to city council, which will take care of the public hearings this evening and bring us to item number 11, new business. Fiscal year 18 impact fee report.
I'm going to be presenting on the development impact fee report for the fiscal year of 2018. You are not supposed to make a recommendation or a decision. This is just basically for your information. The purpose of impact fees and what they are they're payments required by local governments of new development for the purpose of providing new or expanded public capital facilities required to serve the community and new developments. The fees are used to shift the cost of financing public facilities from the general taxpayer. Sources and allocation of impact fees. Well, the data in the 2018 Development Impact Fee Report reflects beginning balances, impact fees collected, other revenues, expenditures, interest, fund totals, and the roads, parks, and public safety projects that received impact fees during the fiscal year of 2018. In the fiscal year of 2018, approximately $1.9 million was collected in impact fees, and $2.4 million of the impact fees were spent on roads, parks, and public safety projects to assist with mitigating growth in the community. As you can see here, this is just an impact fee summary, and I have highlighted the impact fees collected at 1.9, the expenditures broken down for roads, parks, and public safety. And then the total balance that we have is underlined at $7.3 million. As far as public safety is concerned, their impact fees went to wireless data communication projects, animal control facility, and a transfer to Fund 008. Their total public safety projects were about $66,000. Parks, parks spent $1.9 million, and you can see that the what they collected, the total amount spent, so they spent a little bit more than they collected, but this is the point of impact fees. We accrue a bank of funds, and when we have projects, we can envision them and implement them and get and see them from start to finish and have the financial ability to do so. And then this is roads. So $416,000 spent on roads for the Southeast Congestion 7th Avenue design, Spencer Street, 2nd and 3rd, and Southeast/Spokane. And that's it. Do you have any questions about the impact fees for the fiscal year of 2018?
Questions for Jamie?
No.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 12, staff comments. Mr. Manley, anything else to add?
Isn't it nice to have some action here in December?
Action is good.
Yes.
Lots of action.
And Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
You as well. Commission comments. Anything for the good of the order? No?
No.
Then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.